Welcome back to the Pig Trail Show. It is time for our Hog Hoops report with Kevin McPherson. And Kevin, let's talk about this Arkansas basketball team. We just found out about their non-conference schedule. It was released a couple days ago. What do you think about it?
Well, I think Arkansas is kind of getting back to what you expect from a high major program. The headliner, first of all, is that for the first time in 93 years, Arkansas has scheduled two in-state Division One opponents. Last year, after many, many years, they played an in-state Division One opponent. It was Central Arkansas. The Razorbacks won that game 100-75 at Bud Walton Arena. This year, they've added the Little Rock Trojans from the Sun Belt Conference. They'll play UCA again. Both games are at Bud Walton Arena, and they're 3 days apart. Arkansas plays at UCA on December 1st, and then the Little Rock Trojans on December 4th. So I think that's to me the headline. But in terms of quality, I think Arkansas has now gotten back to the kind of schedule you expect from a high major program. They've got at least three high major opponents on the schedule, all from the Big 12. So we know that there's three Big 12 opponents, and two of those games will be played away from home. They're not road games, but two of those games will be played away from home. Kansas State in the Hall of Fame Classic in Kansas City in late November, and then Arkansas will also play Oklahoma in a previously scheduled neutral site game in Tulsa. So proximity for both the Sooners fans and Razorback fans, that ought to be interesting.
Yeah.
So you get two Big 12 opponents away from home. Then Arkansas will host West Virginia in late January. Once SEC play is already started and probably about halfway through, Arkansas will host West Virginia in the annual SEC Big 12 Challenge. So, and then when you go back to that Hall of Fame Classic, win or lose, it's a 4-team tournament format, and Illinois is playing Cincinnati in the other opening round game. So let's say Arkansas and Illinois both win. Arkansas will then add a fourth opponent to the non-conference schedule that's from a high major conference, the Big Ten. And Illinois finished last season ranked second and is going to be ranked again this year. So this is stacking up to be a really strong non-conference schedule, and we know the SEC is going to be tough. We're
Right.
still waiting on the dates and game times and television for those games, but we know the matchup. So Arkansas's schedule looks like it's going to be one in non-conference that prepares them for a tough SEC.
Yeah, some great matchups to look forward to in the non-conference schedule for Arkansas. But let's talk a little bit about recruiting. We know that Texas is coming to town to play Arkansas football this coming weekend, but I think it's going to be a big weekend for the Hog Hoops team as well. I think they're bringing a couple of guys in for this weekend.
Well, they got one official visitor coming in, and it doesn't get bigger than Nick Smith Jr., class of 2022. 6'5" combo guard, has played his previous two seasons at Sylvan Hills, has transferred to North Little Rock, so he'll be with the Charging Wildcats, defending 6A state champs, by the way. But ESPN just bumped him up last week to the number 6 player in its national recruiting rankings, a high-level 5-star. And look, this will be the highest-rated player to visit Arkansas from in-state in about 6 years. And you have to go back to the mid-'90s when you look at Corliss Williamson ranked nationally in the top 3. Darnell Robinson from California a year later in the class of 93, that was ranked by the Sporting News as the number 1 player in the country. Back then, they didn't have star ratings. So in the era of star rankings, Nick Smith Jr. is the most high-profile player Arkansas will have on campus in quite some time. And Arkansas is just hoping that the visit goes well, because Nick Smith Jr. very well can make a decision and sign during the early period. He had an official visit scheduled with the Kentucky Wildcats over this current weekend and canceled it. And his dad told me that Kentucky's now out of the mix. So he's already visited Alabama, Auburn, Georgetown, Kansas. The weekend after his Arkansas visit, which will be September 17th through 19th, he's got a scheduled visit with Oklahoma. But right now, Arkansas fans have to feel good, at least, that Kentucky's eliminated. Just looking at it from sort of a global perspective, I kind of feel like maybe it's Alabama and Arkansas in good shape. We'll see how the Oklahoma visit shakes out. But I think Arkansas is going to be right in it till the end for Nick Smith Jr. And of course, it is an official visit. And I don't think Arkansas is working in any other official visits that weekend, but they are planning to get some high-profile unofficial visitors. One that I'm aware of is Dallas Slim Thomas, a 6'7" wing out of Little Rock Parkview, class of 2024, already 6'7", really a skilled guy on the perimeter. When you talk about shooting, being able to finish at all three levels, really. But already a guy with skill at his young age, just going to be a sophomore at Little Rock Parkview, but he's going to take an unofficial visit. Speaking of unofficial visitors, by the way, Joseph Pinion, who's committed to Arkansas, we know that happened last fall, just got bumped up into the ESPN Top 100. He's at number 95, a 4-star. He took an unofficial visit to Arkansas in early June. He just took one over the weekend for the Arkansas Rice game. And so when you talk about Joseph Pinion just coming on campus for an unofficial visit, then you talk about Nick Smith Jr. and his OV, Dallas Slim Thomas coming in for an unofficial visit. It kind of gives you a picture right now of what the kind of players they're getting on campus. Now, I will say this, Arkansas coaches will also be able to go on the road for the first time in nearly a year and a half, beginning Thursday, September 9th, for on-campus visits. So the coaching staff will go out. 4 of the in-state players that I'll mention that I know that, or I've been told by sources that Arkansas will be out to see at their schools. 2022, Darian Ford, committed to Arkansas in July, 6'4" combo guard out of Magnolia. I'm told assistant coach Gus Argenal will be in Magnolia on Thursday. Joseph Pinion, who we just talked about, Arkansas, will be on his campus at Morrilton High School on Thursday. And I just mentioned Dallas Slim Thomas at Little Rock Parkview. Another 2024 Arkansas offer in Little Rock, K. Honor Boateng, a 6'5" wing at Little Rock Central. Both of those 2024 players will have Arkansas coaches on their campuses to see them as well on Thursday next week, Tara, as the Razorbacks now, when you start talking about on-campus visitors, they were able to start doing that in early June. Then in July, they were able to go do live evaluations at these live shoe circuit events and various events around the country. Now that the spring and summer grassroots season is over, the NCAA is now allowing coaches, Division I coaches, to go back on the road to visit players on their campuses. They used to be able to do in-home visits. I don't know specifically if that's been allowed again yet or not, but I do know Arkansas coaches will be on high school campuses next week to see players that are either committed or that they're trying, that they're still in pursuit of in the recruiting game.
Well, one guy that they were looking at was Bryce Warren, and there's some big news concerning him. So you want to take it away and explain what happened?
Class of 2023, ESPN just moved him up from number 15 to number 14, but he's another 5-star out of Little Rock. Now, he played his freshman season at North Little Rock, was a star for the Charging Wildcats. Johnny Rice, one of the first freshmen to start from the beginning of the season all the way through. Then he transferred to Little Rock Central last year and had another outstanding season, the leading scorer in the tough 6A Central Conference. At both places, he led those teams to 6A Central Conference championships. But he was transferring to one of those independent schools for his junior season, Link Academy in Missouri. So all expectations were that he would be at Link Academy, kind of doing the same path as Moses Moody, who played his last 2 seasons at Montverde Academy before signing with the Razorbacks. Well, Bryce Warren, even in the middle of the week, was talking to Arkansas coaches about coming up for the upcoming weekend for an unofficial visit. And then later in the week on Thursday, he announced he has signed a 2-year deal with Overtime Elite. It's the startup pro league where players can actually leave high school early. So he's moving to Atlanta. He's on a 2-year contract. He will be playing. There's 24 players at Overtime Elite selected from across the country. They'll be divided up into 3 8-player teams. They'll play each other and they'll play other independent schools that are on the high school level. And so this decision is basically, a fast track to professional basketball.
Right.
Until the point where he's eligible to go into the NBA draft or play. Obviously, if he's got a 2-year deal, he won't be able to look at other pro opportunities before the NBA draft. Mm-hmm. But it does rule out him playing in a true high school system or playing college basketball. Yep. Now, it's not just professional basketball, though. He is still going to be in school in terms of being able to get his core credits that he'll need to complete the high school requirements to get a diploma. But at the same time, it's not a traditional school. He is now a professional basketball player. Very interesting. And speaking of professional basketball, and we were talking about this before we came on, but Arkansas, we learned just today, Eric Musselman put out a tweet, Arkansas is going to have a pro day on October 5th, where NBA scouts, teams are going to be able to come in and watch the team practice. Since they've been back on campus, go ahead.
No, I was saying that's huge to have a pro day on campus.
It really is. And I'll tell you what, Arkansas, since Eric Musselman's been here, and this happened with the previous staff too, there were times at practices where NBA teams would come in, a scout, different folks. With Eric Musselman's ties, he had a lot coming in and out of the doors there
Right.
before COVID in his first season. But an actual pro day would allow as many teams, and there's 30 in the NBA, to come in and watch. And, since Arkansas had their 8-week summer session, they had a 3-week break. Everybody returned for the start of the, when school started back for the fall semester for 21-22. So 2 weeks of practice. Everything I hear is about how really this team is locked in. They don't have bad concentration days. They're really working hard. And I think that's a reward. Anytime you've got guys that are playing as hard as Arkansas Razorbacks are, even just in a practice setting, if they're going to come to work with the hard hat on every day, why not have the pros up there to evaluate them early
Yeah.
and give them a chance to get noticed? So I think it's great. It's a win-win for the program, the players, and obviously the pro teams. If they're coming in to watch them, they may just find a guy they want to draft or remember later down the line.
Yeah, that's one of those reasons why you hear guys saying they want to come play for Eric Musselman. So an exciting time on campus for them, and looking forward to that pro day as well. See if any of those guys, get some traction going with any of the teams. But that's going to wrap it up for our Hog Hoops report. Kevin McPherson, as always, thanks so much for your time. But we'll be right back with more on the Pig Trail after the break.